For some strange reason, Mark, the part of the book that I thought was going to be the most tedious for people was the story of my growing up. And the first chapter of the book, as all the chapters are, is named after an idiom, and it's the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So I'm encouraging people to go in and look at, what orchard you grow up in, what tree you came from, and do the apples that you're still carrying around from them apply in your current life? A lot of times they don't.
Today I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming Suzanne Leydecker, the author of A Woman on Top, to share her journey of self-discovery. Suzanne's story takes us on a voyage through her personal evolution following a significant inheritance. She opens up about her financial naivety, her encounters with younger men, and the profound lessons in self-esteem that prompted her to pen her inspiring book. Throughout our conversation, Suzanne underscores the transformative power of self-awareness and gratitude in navigating wealth and personal relationships. Together, Suzanne and I delve into broader societal issues, exploring the ever-changing roles of men and women. Suzanne offers keen insights into the challenges women encounter in maintaining independence and identity within relationships, advocating for harmonious balance between, built on mutual respect and understanding between genders. We also dissect generational shifts in perception of success, stressing the importance of personal responsibility over mere material achievements. Our dialogue extends to the impact of societal expectations on personal growth and relationship dynamics, touching on the significance of realistic goal setting and shortcomings and of fleeting New Year's resolutions. Suzanne introduces her empowering concept of the tribe, a supportive community she's cultivating through her website, designed to uplift women who are primary earners in their relationships. In our shared belief in the power of kindness and empathy, Suzanne and I conclude our discussion with plans for future episodes centered around personal development and societal norms. Enjoy the conversation. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Hero of the Hour podcast. I'm here with Suzanne Leydecker, who I think you're going to discover at the end of this hour. I'm going to put a lot of pressure on you, Suzanne, is hysterically funny. And she is the author of her latest book, or her book, A Woman on Top, My Journey of Self-Discovery Through Love and Money. And it is an hysterical book. You're a mother, clearly, of three children. You're a philanthropist. You're a speaker and an author. And so I'd love to people tell you how you came up with the book, and tell people, I encourage everybody who's watching this to run out and buy this book. You're going to thank me for it. But why don't you tell the people a little bit about how you came about to write this, and tell them a little bit about the message.
Sure, I would love to do that. So when I was, 50 years old, I was in a relationship with a man who was a Olympic athlete, very hot, much younger than me, broker than crap. And so I thought that I could, in some way, I thought I was going to marry him. I thought I could, in some ways, fix this situation. I did some really dumb things, which I'm just totally embarrassed about, like handing him checks for a lot of money. I had just inherited money from my parents like months before I met him. So my feeling about inheriting money, or frankly, when you get a large sum of money when you're divorced, when you sell your company and all of a sudden you've been taking a salary regularly, and now all of a sudden there's $7 million in your bank account. When you go from what you have to, I'm not flying around in private jets, but I can financially take care of myself. And as Mark and I were just talking about, somehow I managed to have way too many houses. Never do that. Don't buy houses. Anyway, so it was very clear that this was not going to work in my gut. I was the one that caused the breakup, but while he was marching out my door for the last time, where he was living with me and my 3 children. I said, "I am going to write a book called A Woman with Means." I don't have any idea, Mark, where those words came from. I'm one of the only people on the planet that managed to go through college without taking an English course. I'm really good with numbers, or I used to be until calculators came along on your phone, and then you don't have to add anything anymore. So I started writing this book, and it took me 11 years, 10 years to write it, and 1 year to publish it. 11s are a magic number for me. Everything happens in 11s. And so I published it on 11/11/2023. There's a lot of people on the planet that really feel like the number 11s is related to angels. Every time I see 11/11 or 111 on the clock, or my boat has 111 hours, or my speedometer says 11,111, I'm like, okay, maybe I should pay attention to what's going on here, not just that I'm driving my car and looking at my speedometer. It doesn't count if you cheat and you look at it 11:10 and you wait the minute. You have to just see it. And I think that, I remember to be very grateful for what I have. So it's a very good reminder for me. Anyway, so I started writing this book, and oh gosh, it took me forever. I went off. I even stopped writing for a year and a half because I was just felt too underwater with everything, just as most people do out there. There's too much to do and not enough time, which I just came up with a strategy for that to help me balance that out. But anyway, I did this 2 more times with 2 more men, both semi-professional athletes, both really young, super hot, broker than crap. You'd think that I would learn my lesson. My son-in-law actually said to me one time, he's like, "Well, I didn't feel so sorry for you after you inherited money and then you made the same mistake again and again." And I was like, is he really 40 years old? Because I have a 40-year-old son-in-law. And I was like, everybody makes the same mistake over and over again. That's called life's lesson. That's what you get. And sometime maybe you wake up and you realize that you don't want to do the same thing over and over again because the results that it produces are not very strong or good for you, or whatever the case may be. So I finally decided that the few people that I could upset, namely the boyfriends, who are all renamed and,
Right.
different messages,
So
and
they
my
can,
ex.
so they can't, so they'll be, the innocent will be, the guilty will be protected and they won't sue us. That's why their names are, yes.
Exactly. And, once I went, so after I took a year and a half off, after like 5 years into this, it wouldn't leave me alone, because in the beginning I was like, who is going to want to read a book about a wealthy white woman and her problems? Well, let me tell you something. I don't have too many problems at the moment, but it's not because of wealth. Yes, it provides food, water, and shelter, but the reason why I don't have a lot of problems is because I use this experience, and this is what this book is all about, is my outer journey of trying to figure out how to have money as a female. I interviewed a lot, or I talked to a lot of my friends, and I quickly realized nobody had a very good solution about how to be wealthy and to date or be in a successful relationship. They all seem to have problems. So I'm like, I'm not the only one. But when I went back and started it again, because it wouldn't leave me alone, I wanted to change how I experienced my growing up. And I wanted to change how I felt about all those boyfriends along the way. And I forced myself to leave them and how I felt at the time, to the best of my recollection, so that I could see go write a book. You don't need to go to therapy. You can see your whole life spelled out and how far you've come. Because there was times along the way when I'm like, when am I ever going to get this? And my outer experience turned into a much deeper inner spiritual experience. For some strange reason, Mark, the part of the book that I thought was going to be the most tedious for people was the story of my growing up. And the first chapter of the book, as all the chapters are, is named after an idiom, and it's "the apple doesn't fall far from the tree." So I'm encouraging people to go in and look at what orchard you grow up in, what tree you came from, and do the apples that you're still carrying around from them apply in your current life? A lot of times they don't. We get a lot of messages around love and money. Love and money was intertwined like nobody's business in my family. You were good some days, and then you would be offered something great and awesome financially to start a business or whatever. And the next day I would be told I was a little girl. And how dare I ever think that I could handle something like that? It's a very confusing message to get. But I think that my growing up formed the things that I had going on in these relationships.
Even for somebody like you who has a master's degree, I realize not in finance, but you're highly, highly educated. Why would that? Why would having two master's degrees? Why would people think that you could not handle finances or money?
Because I think that it's really important to go back to that apple tree and, kind of untwist the messages that we got as children growing up in our homes. And what I was going to say first, prior to this, is that that's become the most interesting part of the book for most people, because it takes them back into, they may not have had the same similar experience that I had, but they can begin to identify what apples and what behaviors and traits and thoughts that are working for them and pitch the rest. And doing a 180 does not count. Like if your dad was really wealthy and you decided that, well, I'll give you an example. My dad did quite well. My dad used to pound his hand on a desk and say, I can get $5 million, without security tomorrow. Okay. That was, they liked him. But he told me over and over again, do not marry anybody that has a bank account that's under $5 million. I misconstrued that. And I thought what he said is, don't date anybody that has a bank account of over $150. So
It's the same.
that does not count. I pulled a 180. I was like, unconsciously or subconsciously or wherever that lives, I was like, I am not going to let my dad control who I am. And I am going to, always be the woman that is self-sufficient, takes, like financially, emotionally, everything. It doesn't work. I'm here to living proof today that does not work. So I really had to untwist those behaviors myself to see, and I can look back and my parents were great, but it was a wacky environment. And so I think that's why that part of the book is so impactful for people, because it makes them look at their growing up, no matter whether it looks like mine or not. And just to add one more piece, this book, my avatar, the person that I am trying to reach here, is wealthy women who are bread earners, who find themselves in relationships, often with people that are not their equals, because if they were, then they would probably have a healthy relationship and be in them. But what I'm finding by doing that practice that a friend of ours, Amber Vilhauer, taught me how to do, is the extent of text messages, emails every single day from somebody who's read my book, many of them being men. And how, just to tie back to what you do, you talk about generational wealth. That's what you're doing. That's what you want to, primarily. I know you do a lot of things. Generational wealth. And I had a man who did not know me send me a message the other day, and he said, wow, your book really helped me to think about, him and his wife had saved some money for his two daughters. Think about how I gift this to them and what message that I want to give to them around money, around the responsibilities of money, around how to handle it and not feel embarrassed because you're a female. there's a lot of us out there that are really struggling with our self-esteem because we based, like we based our self-esteem on being like appropriate women or something, you know? Traditionally, you are the bread earner. I am the bread baker. I'm sorry, but I talk to many young college age girls. They don't know what they're doing. Or I said, how do you guys, you're so smart. You go to Brown University or Harvard or wherever they go. How do you handle your relationships with men? Mostly I get answers like, we just don't do it. It's too complicated. We don't know how to live into our own empowerment and, and be in a successful relationship.
I will, just a couple of comments. I'll tell you, when I was in my late 20s and I started to make some money, and and this was before the internet was really going around like it was now. During the day, I would have a chauffeur-driven Mercedes-Benz. And then I bought an $800 Sunbird car that was about 10 years old. So if I was going to take a woman out, I would take her out in the $800 Sunbird, and we'd probably go to like a chain restaurant or something like that. Just something like a regular restaurant, like a regular guy in his late 20s or 30 would take a woman out. And I thought I was being, just not clever, but, just saying, hey, here's, just trying to make it, we're not going to Chateau Fungul and, with my driver, so to speak. And what I thought was it was a total clusterfuck because I wasn't like going to bars and meeting people. There wasn't online dating. I was meeting people through friends and business contacts, and they go, I thought this guy was supposed to be this big financial advisor. They just thought I was like eccentric, because I thought this guy, driver, he picked me up in a car that, barely started. And, and then when I got divorced in my late 40s, and I was single before I met Lisa for about 10 years, having two boys, a few things happened. One, they would not stand for it if I was dating somebody that was not age appropriate in their mind.
Oh, yeah, I've been through
that. My dear friends, many of whom were women, but women being half the couple, would savage the woman if they thought she was too young. And literally, you had some women that were age appropriate but looked younger, and they would like savage them, and then say, "Oh, do you know she's 49?" And they go, and I was like, say 51 or 2 at the time or 3. They go, "Oh, she's great. she was horrible when you thought she was 35, but now she's 49. She's great." And I think like the issue, but I think for me, it's like not that you care what your kids think. Obviously, you care at some level what people around you think, and at some level, but not totally. But I think the real issue is I felt like when I was dating, if I dated young people within say less than 10 years of my age, more than 10 years of my age, I felt bad about me for this reason that I thought, what is a 28-year-old girl looking for from a 50-plus-year-old guy other than money? And then you felt very old because, like, who is John F. Kennedy? Or who it's like you're like you'd have your the like the your cultural references and stuff. They were like, who is that? Who
Right.
and
I have a question for you that might be personal.
Sure.
In nature. So really, if you go back down to it at the time, why were you taking them out in the Sunbird rather than the chauffeur driven?
Well, I just wanted, what you wanted to see people, I think part of it is when you start to have the ability to help a lot of people in many different ways, people show up in a different way around you when they know you can help them. And you want to make sure that they're there for you. One of my great stories is I had somebody who literally lost every dime they had to Bernie Madoff. What was that, 10 or 12 years ago, something like that. And he had married a woman that was very beautiful. And literally the day after he lost everything, which I think was about $60 million or something, she came into it and he lost it all. He was distraught. His life's work was over. And she said, "I'm divorcing you." And he's like, in the lowest moment of his life. And she said, the deal was you were rich and I was beautiful. You are no longer rich. And
Right.
walked out the door.
Well, it's interesting because I think that's so when I was 47, we lived a very simple life. I grew up in Ross, California, which is 20 minutes north of San Francisco. And my dad built a business, a freight forwarding business, which is now called Global Logistics. But he did quite well. And he actually traded in, my grandfather started it with a man named Harper. And my dad took it over, and in his family, we used to go to the grandparents, every weekend. And I saw my cousins, my father's brother's children, and everything was just great. And then when my dad decided that he wanted the company, the 10-person company in San Francisco, to become much bigger, the family saw that as going against the love. He was trading in, wanting to be rich for love. And that was a very no more grandparents, no more family. I finally am back in touch with my cousin, and we've had long discussions about it. And she has read this book, and she's like, whoa, I didn't know this was all going on. I saw it as being totally normal because he just did it. But so when I was 47, we'd lived a normal life. We played kickball, hide and seek. We went to Lake Tahoe for a week. When I was 47, I inherited money off of a second to die life insurance policy. Being that I know you know something about life insurance policy, it was never really clear whether this thing was going to produce any income. It was a very complicated situation. And when my mother finally passed, I called the life insurance company and talked to them. And I said, I'm here to just let you know that my second parent died. And they were like, well, just give us your claim number or whatever they said. And I was like, probably need to talk to your supervisor. And this woman was like, oh, no, I can help you, dear. And the next thing, she came back on the phone and she's like, you don't need to talk to my supervisor. The first 2 checks they sent me got lost in the mail. Speaking of before the internet, why they didn't send them FedEx? They sent 2 rather large checks in the mail, and those didn't make it. Just disappeared. So they had to reissue them. And the day I got those checks, it was before you could take pictures with phones or anything. I was like over the top. And I wrote in my book that it was like I had won the lottery. I had no idea what to do. I had no idea. I wrote checks to the boyfriend that I was supposed to marry on his birthday. The first one I gave him willingly to try to make things more equal. And the second one, he could not rip the check out of my hand without tearing it. But he took it. I look back on all those things and I'm like, oh my God, you nobody. I talk to people all the time. We're like, when I win the lottery, this is what I'm going to do. Well, we know what happens with lottery winners. They usually lose all the money. Their families break up. They don't know who their friends are, as you just pointed out too. And sometimes they kill themselves.
Right.
Kate
Well,
Spade,
yeah.
Anthony Bourdain, those 2 people that died within a week of each other because they decided that their lives weren't good enough. Money didn't have anything to do with it.
Well, there's a very famous study, and I coach. When I'm, our 2, mantras is, we spend most of our time helping people create multi-generational wealth, but we have a lot of clients who've already created multi-generational wealth. And one of the first things I do is, just like I do with my athletes, I say to them, 81% of all professional athletes are bankrupt or in severe financial distress within 2 years of retirement. And to those very, very wealthy families that have already created wealth, what I say to them is, there's a Williams study of 3,200 ultra high net worth families, 3,200. And by the end of the second generation, 70% of them are wiped out. By the end of the third generation, 90% of them are wiped out. And we talk about all the things that are the reasons. And I basically have been lecturing around the country to these groups, talking about all the things that Because nobody wants to be in the 10%. They all think they're going to be in the or it's going to be in the 90%. They want to be in the 10%. They all think they're going to be in the 10%. And we just keep making mistake after mistake after mistake. And, with my 5 kids, with Lisa and I, blended, 2 of mine and 3 of hers, it's, I think that the mistake that I think that I've made, and I think we've got some great kids. Like, I think, everybody thinks their kids are great. In fact, I did a podcast with my kids and I said, everybody thinks their kids are great. I'm having a podcast to see truly awful, rotten kids, and I want to feature you guys on my podcast, which we were laughing about. But I think the idea is that when you don't grow up with a lot, like I did, you grew up dumb and broke and suffer in New York. The issue is you want to give your kids all the things you didn't have, and you also roll a little bit bigger because you're not driving a Sunbird anymore, or you're not doing those other things. You're living the life you're living. And I think that there's an entitlementness that I think takes some of the hunger away. And not that my kids aren't educated and smart and hardworking and polite, but I'm a street guy who is an animal and I'm indefatigable. They haven't had to do that because they haven't had to do that. And so you go through all that stuff. Yeah.
You're talking about a very complicated situation, because I refer to 2 friends, which I will not give you their names, but a couple, and they used to have what was considered, now we have like $125 million homes in Aspen, Colorado, where I live. It's just ridiculous. But back when I was in 2000, when I moved there, they had this beautiful home, the $25 million home. They had a private plane. They also lived in Palm Beach or something. And so I was like, well, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to be flying on their private jet, and they're going to fly the children on United in seat 27E and F. Like, the children nowadays, like, that are second generational wealth. And essentially, I guess, even though we lived a very frugal lifestyle, some things changed when my father took his company public in 1977 and I was 17. But that I only got that from writing a book and realizing, oh, he bought a house in Lake Tahoe for $250,000. I don't think you could buy a house in Lake Tahoe for $250,000, but that was a big deal. And they remodeled their very simple home in Ross, California. But I think that this is one of the reasons that I wrote this book, is that there is no way you can not raise your children being rather entitled because you've been successful. But you see, I look at as far as I know, Mark, maybe you got to, but I didn't get to choose whether I was born in Ross, California, and I was going to inherit some money at 47, or whether I was born in a small remote village in Uganda. I just arrived. I have a feeling you talk to your spiritual master up there, and before you're born, and your spiritual master's like, hey, Mark, what do you want to learn in this lifetime? And you're like, well, I'd actually like to learn about going from a street scrapping, whatever situation, family, to making some money and then raising these kids. See, this is the Earth School. This is what I've learned from writing this book. This is my inner journey. This is the Earth School. I don't care where you grow up, what you have now, whether you're male, female, or a they. We're all people on this earth in this thing called a school. So what I get from what you're saying is that the things that you can do to help your children understand it is to help them understand how they can use this experience, not just to be spoiled little brats or whatever. Sure, they're not, but I'm just using the outside edge. How they can use this to become the best version of themselves. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, and I think that's but that's the challenge, and the challenge in life is always that piece. And I think it's hard to find. I think I do. Well, I have a question for you. Do you think it's harder at, let's call it, north of 40 or 45 or 50? Do you think it's hard for everyone, impossible, equally hard, or do you think it's harder for women to find love or men to find love at that age?
Well, from what I'm getting, I can tell you another spiritual message I got. I talk to women all the time. I used to be very much of a tomboy. I liked hanging around men. Now I really appreciate women, and I'm trying to create from my book, from my message, a tribe and a community where people don't feel alone about their situation. From my experience, Mark, every every woman from 12 to 102 is struggling. Not all. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say every. There is a lot of women collectively struggling with how to be successful in their lives and to find a partner. We can see from the headlines, okay, men aren't going to college as much as women, where if I hear one more female saying, well, they're just little boys, even if they're not young, um, I just I don't do we not realize as women that we are 50% of the population? They are the other 50. So for us not to find a way to get along with you and to support and to not put men down, especially millennials who are supposedly not doing anything, and just we taught them how to drink the chai lattes and took them to sushi. What did we expect? But I think that collectively on the planet, it seems to me that women seem to be in a stronger position of, taking personal responsibility, which is super important to me, than men may be doing at this time. So I'm convinced that, can I tell you my quick other story about what God told me?
Please.
All right. By the way, in the last one, you agreed to do, you're like, oh, that's the perfect family for me to go into. And when you make the journey through the birth canal, you agree, you sign, triplicate, notarize that you're going to forget, because if you knew all your lessons, what would we be doing? Eating cherries. So anyway, so God came down to me and he's like, hey, listen, women, I know you guys are becoming more empowered. I can see it. You're showing up collectively again as a strong presence on this planet, stronger than you've ever been. But what you tend to do is you find someone you like, and all of a sudden that strong, independent, powerful woman who, by the way, the guy fell in love with in the first place, becomes a little bit wishy-washy. And it's like, oh, Frank, whatever you want to do. And we totally lose our sense of who we are. Now, by the way, that's very upsetting. We know to men too, because they married us or they fell in love with us for a reason. But we're so used to culturally, kind of bowing down as from, generation upon generation upon generation of showing up in a certain way. So God said to me, he's like, you know what I'm going to do for you ladies? This is going to be your service to the planet for future generations. I'm just going to take the men away that are really good for you, so that you can really learn how to stand up in your authentic selves and take personal responsibility for your lives. Then I'll bring them back. But as far as I know, I told you about the girls at Brown and Harvard, and they're young. They're 18. They ain't finding anybody at the moment. Don't know. It's part of this evolutionary change we're going through.
It's part of, I'm at 60. I am, or 61. I am, I hope I'm turning into like the guy who stands on his front yard at the lawn and yells at the kids, or is like the dinosaur. But I am, as I said, I don't think I have toxic masculinity, but I have masculinity. And, so I'm going to try to respect a woman. I'm going to open the car door for her, or hold the door open, or, honor and respect her. And I think that, I find myself totally lost when I'm with a social justice warrior, or somebody who, how could you disrespect me? I've had people say, how could you disrespect me? I can pull my own share out. Like I was treating her like she was less than. And to me, and was actually not very kind. I've had people unkind by doing it, and not in a condescending way, in a gentlemanly way. And I'm like,
well, you know what?
WTF?
Yeah, that's because we have confused you so badly. Half of us want the car door open, half of us don't. You don't know what to do. Like, you're tiptoeing on eggshells to, I don't think this is working, Mark, on our part. Because frankly, some of the greatest spiritual masters on the world have so much patience that is the thing that it inspires me around them. And basically, it's not like you shouldn't. I mean, if I really don't want you to do something, I should let you know. But it doesn't have to be in a mean way, trying to, belittle you for trying to, what I think is belittling me. This is not working. Like, just live into acceptance. Shit happens. So somebody opens a car door for you, water off a duck's back. Like, what are we getting so upset over? We're just creating more upset. And, I think that if you really look at the pendulum, right? Men have been way up here. You've been controlling for generations upon generations upon generations, not dismissing that you're not a really great guy. I'm very happy to be sitting here. But then
My mother would appreciate you saying that. She appreciates it.
Yes. Women have we're trying to get the pendulum up here. And what we're doing at the moment, from what I can see, is bashing men, calling them little boys, telling them that that we have no responsibility over our behavior. And so men are trying to swing the pendulum back over here in Florida. And I don't know if this is really true. Somebody said maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But there was a discussion in the New York Times about the fact that Florida was no longer allowing young girls, like 10 to 13-year-olds, to talk about menstruation in school. Now, that to me is the most absurd thing. Some of these girls are menstruating at 10. You can't talk about that. That's something that they need to talk about. They need to understand. But I saw it as and this may be just what I'm making up, as a swing back on the pendulum for men to try to say, you know what? Screw you, ladies. We got this under control, and you're not. Let's find a way to come together. I don't know. I'm curious. Do you think that women across the age levels have a better chance of loving versus not?
Well, I'll put it this. I mean, first of all, I think it's tough out there for everybody. It's different tough, but it's tough for everybody. But I remember being 23 in the firm that I run now, and the women who were sort of the let's call it the operations administrative people were like, say, 55 or so. And they would say in 1985, sexual harassment is not only encouraged, it will be judged. Can you imagine in 2024 people saying that? And I find myself at this point, and it's with men too. It's different. It's men so litigious, and people are looking to be offended and so polarized. But I think since we're talking about women, it's that piece is like my natural reaction would be, and this would be to a man or a woman or a child, to say, "Hey, Suzanne, those are beautiful earrings you have." Not like, "Hey, great ass." It would be like more like, "Oh, those are beautiful earrings," or "I like your haircut," or that's a something like that, or "Those shoes that's a great pair of shoes." Like, I find myself being cautious who I say that to. I also find myself cautious saying things to which I would normally say that to a guy if he had, God, that's a beautiful suit. Where'd you buy that suit? It's gorgeous. To a man, meaning just, that kind of thing. But just being kind. And I think the kindness gets mistaken for something there. The other is that I find myself discriminating against people and intentionally to not discriminate them. As an example, as a man in a relationship that is good, I will not take out women for lunch one-on-one. I wouldn't
Right,
take,
you can't anymore.
I would like if let's say a client, I was taking them to the Knicks game tonight and the client canceled last minute. I got the flu. I have COVID. I can't go. I'm sending you the ticket back. I'd probably, if it's now that I got to leave, it's 15 minutes before the game, I'd grab one of the young guys out here, go, "Hey, Joe, do you want to go to the game?" I wouldn't go to Susie and take her to the game.
That's so sad, isn't it?
Because
No, I get it.
yeah.
We've built this thing that, let me just say also that, women spend a fortune trying to make themselves look better. Multi gazillion dollar business to make your ass look good. So, yeah, I'm really going out on a limb, but this is what I'm a truth seeker, and I'm going to say what is right, no matter what anybody thinks about it. That is one of my number one principles, is that we're all looking for you to say great ass. Why do you think we're dressed like we're dressed? So I think, like getting rid of that, and but there's not a lot of balance around it.
It's also inappropriate I would say at my age in a relationship. I wouldn't want to be disrespectful to Lisa, and I don't think I would say that anyway. It would be a different thing, but I think the rules have changed, and I think ultimately, I am a feminist. I have two daughters. I have a very powerful partner.
Wait a minute. Look, before you go on, my number one question is what, and this is not meant in any way, this is just a discussion point. What is your definition of feminism?
My definition of feminism is, and it's more broad, is that I believe that every single person deserves every opportunity to succeed in where they choose to in their life, and that everybody should have equal opportunity, and that there should be no head starts, and I think that the world should be open and should be about possibilities, that everybody should have an opportunity to seek and choose what they want to do. And one of my things is, I think if you want to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, I think that you should be out of a path to go do that and earn that path. And I think if you want to stay home and be a full-time mom, you should have just as much respect as if you're a CEO. And if you're like most people, which are doing about 42 things, you want to honor that person and acknowledge them for what they're doing, and the path that they have chosen. And I think as somebody who is a feminist, and I'm a feminist because I support everybody, not just women, is you want to be able to do your part to try to find out if you can give somebody not a handout, but a hand up, and give them a little bit of encouragement. And I think part of the thing about saying something kind to somebody is, it's amazing to me, Suzanne, how one nice word from somebody can make somebody's day and change how they think about the day. Just like if you say something, like derogatory, it can spiral them down too at the same time. And I go, when do we get a point where people are not so sensitive, where we can have true kindness to each other, but in not a way that's condescending, or not a way where they use it for advantage. Meaning it's a delicate balance. And I understand why there is an issue, how that can be condescending. I remember being at a school parent event, and there was someone who was like a yogi kind of person, just like called everybody sweetie and honey, whatever. And there was a young woman, and like it was, that was their, everybody was sweetie. There was nobody who wasn't, it was like Hulk Hogan calling you brother. He calls everybody brother. And I remember this woman like took off and was so unkind to this woman. And I'm saying that, I go, this is one of the kindest people ever. I stood up in the parent teacher meeting and said, this person it called you sweetie out of kindness, not of condensation. You could use that word kindness, but I've known this person for many years, and this person calls everybody sweetie, and that's her highest form of flattery. And maybe it's not appropriate or inappropriate, but I wish you would have a little less harsh reaction to that, because she's here to support you and help you and to make your job easier, not to in any way disrespect you in any way. And it was a woman to a woman. So part of it is, that you want to figure your way out there so people can navigate things a little bit better, and it can actually be comfortable and not have to overthink anything.
Right. Well, the reason why I asked you the question is, in my book, years ago, feminism, for many of us, was bra burning, man hating, left wings, lesbians. And there is a lot of people on the planet that are using the word, and really the word means pretty much what you said, equality. So you talked about treating people equally in how you What, the one thing, this is really going out on a limb too. I love you. I think you're a great man. And I genuinely have enjoyed this conversation so much. I had no idea what to expect. I was a little nervous going into it. And I'm like, I can't blow it. But the words of wisdom that you have and the interesting twists and turns this is all taken has been truly spectacular. So, I'm probably not supposed to tell you I love you. Hi,
Well,
Lisa. I love you.
I will say that back to you in the most appropriate way. But let's just end this with a couple of things. This book, this best-selling book that you have written, who is it for? Tell me who should buy this, other than everyone, other than everyone.
Yes. As I mentioned, my primary target audience, and I don't care what age you are, because I think it's appropriate for women that are earning, that have, in my case, I inherited it. I was like the worst piece of trash on the earth because you didn't do anything to make it. Well, as I said, I didn't get to choose. This is what I got. So now let's play the game. And how do I play the game to the best of my ability that creates kindness and peace? So my avatar is really bread earning females. And there's a lot of them out there. I think that you have many clients that have come into some kind of women that are, come into some kind of wealth in your business. And so that's my primary client, message to, because I want them to know that they're not alone. Because a lot of people think they're all alone in this situation. I'll just tell you one brief story that I met this woman in Mexico, and for some reason, where I go water skiing in Mexico, there happens to be a lot of bread earning females. Weirdly enough, husbands sometimes. I was like, well, what does he do? And she's like, well, he goes water skiing and he plays golf and sometimes he cleans the yard, but somehow they have a mutual respect and it all works. This one woman heard me speaking about my book, and she pulled me across the room, this outdoor tent thing, and was like, I can't tell my parents and my family that I'm on vacation. And I said, why not? And she's like, well, I just went away like 2 weeks ago and they wouldn't like that. They would judge me around that. And I was like, I got her real concern. But the reason why she took me away to tell me something privately was because she thinks she's the only one. Now that's, mostly it's happening in intimate relationships, but that being said, so my primary target is that, but I told you every single day I wake up to, I don't know how many people have read this book at this point. It was published 11/11, maybe 150. Every morning I get up to a message says, a lot of people started at 8:00 at night and can't put it down and finish it at 3 a.m. It's very usual. So it's fast read, but I get people giving me, like, I thought they can't all be blowing smoke up my ass. Sorry. But I continued to get them from men, from women, from, by me narrowing down my focus, I think it's for everyone, because I don't care whether you're rich, famous. A lot of famous people have a lot of troubles. Whether you're a better athlete. I wrote about somebody on the US ski team, a girl, and she was like, what do you think it's like if you're, perform better on the ski hill than your partner? I get it.
Isn't the real point though about this is that money is one definition of success, and it's one that's commonly used to measure people. They measure people in different ways, but I think ultimately that for a powerful woman, and I think Lisa, and now with some help from me for the last 4 or 5 years, are raising hopefully 3 good men and 2 very powerful women, and I think because Lisa's powerful, but I think the idea is that there may be they may very well out earn their partners. They very well not too, but there's a possibility. And I think the idea is that ultimately you want to be focused on people that are whatever they do, they're the very best at what they do and the very best versions of themselves. Like as an example, you may not make $10 million a year if you're a federal judge, but that's a pretty prestigious job. Or if you were a very great professor at a nice university, is that somebody who's not successful because they make $150,000 a year and not $10 million? Are they not successful? Or maybe they work as a social worker in a school and are changing the lives of underprivileged children and making a difference in the world, and they make $30,000 a year. And if money is not that issue, but they are successful in terms of what they're doing to change the world in that piece, and have to be respected for that. And I think there's too much emphasis on money, and money is important. You need money to do stuff. You need money to live. When the only people who don't care about money are people that have money. You know, you know, you know.
That's for
you know,
surely true.
I don't care about money, of course, because you have it. It's like, it's not there. But I think, I think having said that, the world is changing, and I think the world is changing, and women's power is here to stay. And I think there's adjustments that need to be made on all parts. But I don't think by taking masculinity away or femininity away for most relationships is going to be the long-term answer to it. And I think it's a way where, women will have a full seat at the table, and it's up to both people to change. Like I think, like for myself is when you're a single person, and it means you could do anything you want, anytime you want, whoever you want, you could do whatever. Nobody's telling you what to do. And so when you get involved in a relationship, there's adjustments that are made on both sides, particularly when you have two strong people that are there. And so I think the decision you have to make, if you find the right person, like I did, it took me a long time. I was kid her. She goes, why did it take me 57 years to find the right person? I said, well, I used to just play hard to get. I changed it. Now I play hard to want. And that's how I got it, was with the place on that. And I think but there's adjustments that she has to make tons of adjustments to put up with me. And I've got to make adjustments, but it's all well worth it because we're committed and we're in it together. And the end justifies the means for sure, because there's so much great joy. We have truly a family. If you read my book, the inside chapters, I wrote the Brady Bunch theme song. I wrote put our families, and that's everything. And to have that person that has my back, and the person that in fact, she said to, I said to her before, I said, I'm having a really tough day today. It was a really, really rough day today. It's a really long, it's been a tough week. All good, but just tough. And her answer to me is, I love you and I've got your back. That's worth it all. And so if I've got to pick up after myself a little harder, and I've got to be a little kinder, and I've got to be a little less, a little less, whatever I'm there, and a little more civilized. Remember, when the three of us raised each other, it was like Lord of the Flies. We'd somebody would, with myself and the two boys, somebody get punched, and then we'd turn on ESPN and forget the whole thing. That was how we resolve. That's how we resolve problems. Now we talk about things, or we do. We're civilized. I think we're all better for it. But I just want to thank you. I want to encourage everybody. And here's what I'm going to do. We've already bought some of your books. I'm going to make sure I get a book out to both of my daughters and to Lisa. And I want to say, everybody who's watching that, I want you to not only buy this book for yourself, I want to buy this book for every person that you love. And Suzanne, thank you.
Your boys, I would love to get some feedback from them. And my one ask here is that I think it's great. I think this book is powerful and it's going to change some things. But I do have a website at SuzanneLeydecker.com. If you would like to join the tribe, join the community that I'm trying to create so that people know that they're not alone. Go there. You can sign up for a newsletter. I just did my first 2 blogs that will come out in February. And today my plan was, because I thought we were going to talk about, I don't want to put a goal setting, but New Year's resolutions, which I believe do not work. Everybody sets New Year's resolutions 3 weeks or 3 months later. We're not doing it. And then we beat ourselves up because we didn't do it. So I came up with this whole plan by month, or it took me forever, Mark. But it's really helping me to get some clarity around some simplification and really laying out my core values, my why, my vision, who I'm speaking to. And so we're going to make that available as a free PDF. So if you're interested in looking at a different way of not trying to meet your goals, and this is so great because it has, sorry, I know that this is on like Audible. It has all the things that I put out. I put them in each month, and I said, this is all I need to do in order to create less stress in my life is do January. That's it. I'm not even going to look till February. And by the way, I've had your book. I said I picked out one book a month for this. Your book sitting on my floor for 6 months, just watching it grow dust on it. So you're actually in here. I had to do a few things first, like reread my own book, but you were in March. And in March, I made space, and my happy little bookshelf now is like, she's going to read us. But I don't have to think about reading 12 books. I got
Understood.
one.
Gotcha.
And it's really helped me, like I'm actually reading a book. So I can't wait to read your book. My son did tell me that it was absolutely wonderful and in complete alignment with who you are. And I think you're going to do a great job with your children, and the boys and the girls. And I think it's just continuing to look towards maybe the out of the box thoughts, like not how you're going to give them money, but how are you going to raise them to be the most kind, the most loving, the person in the room that takes everything the least serious. Water off a little duck's back. Like, none of this makes any difference, whether you're rich or you're poor. It just doesn't. It's all just being in the earth school.
Well, I think maybe I'll have you back on the podcast to talk about why New Year's resolutions don't work, and what you're developing in the tribe. And just thank you so much for being here. And I appreciate you. And I will talk to you soon.
Thank you. Blessings.
Thank you, my
to
friend.
Thank you.